Welcome to this Monday edition of the Angela Ray Show. I hope that you all have had a great weekend and you are ready for part two. Yes, part two of Leading My Best Life. If you are new here, make sure that if you're watching us live, go ahead and slide into the comments and let me know the last book that you read because this series is tied to my book, Megastar Student Leadership. So go ahead and let me know the last book that you read. If you are catching this on the replay, thank you so much for your support of the Angela Ray Show. I definitely appreciate it. For all of you who are watching in Twitter and Periscope land, because this is only the second week that we have started broadcasting over there. Thank you so much for hanging out and checking out the show. Again, this is part two of Leading My Best Life. For all of you who will be watching live, I need to know that you are here. So, again, do me a favor, slide into those comments and let me know where you are watching from on tonight. Now, as always, with the Angela Ray Show, we start each and every evening off with our Ray of Motivation moment. And for tonight's Ray of Motivation moment, I saw one of my fellow educators on Instagram share this quote, and it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. So, this is our Ray of Motivation moment for tonight. And that is once you start seeing your worth, you'll stop seeing people who don't. Once you start seeing your worth, you will stop seeing people who don't. We all, I will say most people, have something innate within us to want to help people. We want to see the best in people. We want to know that we are giving our all. Again, I said most people, this may not apply to each and every one of us. But most people, the human side of us, we want to reach out. We want to lend a helping hand. We want to be there for our neighbors. We want to be there for our family. We want to be there for our friends. But there's a difference between being a helping hand and letting someone basically trample you down on the ground while you're trying to lift them up. And so if someone is not seeing your worth, you need to take a long kind of step back, process, and figure out whether or not you need to stop seeing them. And I'm not just talking about relationships. When we think about seeing someone, oftentimes we automatically go to relationships, but there are so many different types of relationships. There are relationships where we have friends, where we have co-workers, where we have business partners, people that we don't necessarily call a friend, but we know them pretty well. So maybe they're an associate or an acquaintance, different people in our circle. So I want to make sure that as you go throughout this week, that you are determining whether or not the people in your circle are definitely seeing your worth or whether or not you need to stop seeing them. And that is your Ray of Motivation moment for this Monday edition of the Angela Ray Show. Well, again, I said tonight is part two of our Leading My Best Life series. And I'm excited tonight to interview our special guest. So, Jwaundace Candece moved to LA in January of 2000 from Atlanta to pursue a career in acting. Now, she had these fantastic athletic abilities. So she ended up auditioning for thousands of other girls for Women of Wrestling. And this was a TV series that aired in 2000s. Now, later, because of these athletic abilities and everything that she was able to accomplish, she started being recruited for stunts. She was approached to be the stunt double, none other than Queen Latifah, in Bringing Down the House. You know that fight scene that Queen Latifah did? Well, she was the one actually doing, the punches. And that actually earned her a Best Fight nomination at the MTV Movie Awards in 2005. Now, she later moved back to Atlanta and she's been pursuing both acting as well as stunts. But recently, she created an organization called Stunt People of Color. Please help me welcome my special guest for this Monday edition, Miss JC. JC, thank you so much for being on the Angela Ray Show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It is truly an honor. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you this. During this time of the pandemic, of social distancing and quarantining, especially in the entertainment industry, there hasn't been a
Mhm.
lot going on for us. So how have you spent some of the downtime?
Well, I have a 10-year-old, so he makes up most of my life. So I have to entertain him. And when I'm not doing that, I'm also being creative. We actually wrote a horror full feature film to his short film because he's been a bit of, he's got the bug himself where he's a
Okay.
writer director. So we wrote a
Okay.
full length script. And I've also been writing myself and reading books and trying to catch up on my friends' books. I got to get your book. And also, I've been having Zoom webinars for Stunt Park so we can increase the awareness of what's going on in the stunt industry and just to have them be prepared for what's to come when we get out of this pandemic.
And Stunt Pock, I just want to make sure people know that is the Stunt People of Color. That's the online directory. Yes, right?
Yes, stunt performers of color, and it's throughout the United States and Canada, and it lists all different ethnicities. If you're looking for any ethnic performer throughout the US and Canada, you can find them on our site.
And so what prompted you to create this? Because this is a recent creation. Last year or 2018?
Yeah, it's actually 2018, and we have a
Hmm.
new site that just launched a few months ago. So, what prompted me to create it was that there were so many people, because of my experience, especially now that I moved back to Atlanta, who would call me saying, "Hey, I need an Asian girl who could do this, or a black girl could do that, or a black guy." And so, people were always calling me to get their information, to try to figure out. But then I looked around and I realized I don't know everyone. There are so many different talented stunt performers of color. So I decided to create a database because I couldn't keep up with them myself. So it's a niche that needed to be filled in our community because it's the first of its kind.
Now, I mentioned that you got started in stunts because of your athletic abilities. What sports or what were you doing prior to that? Everyone was like, "Oh, she got them guns. We need to have her doing some stuff."
Well, I moved. It happened really quick. I moved to LA in 2000. I auditioned for the wrestling company in 2000, became
Hmm.
tag team champion. But in the midst of all this, I was still pursuing acting. I was taking acting classes. I was still honing my skills at Groundlings, at Beverly Hills Playhouse, at the Ivana Chubbuck School. So, but eventually I got recruited to do stunts with Queen Latifah and Bring Down the House. She saw me on her show on the show on UPM. I don't know if you remember that station UPN. And so between her and the stunt coordinator and one of the stunt girls who I fought, who was doubling Missy on the show. She was also on my wrestling team. Then I got recruited to do stunts, and I did my first four movies was with Queen Latifah. I was still pursuing an acting career, but I have to give my stunt career, I have to give homage to Queen Latifah because it was her. We were sitting at a restaurant in Prague, my fourth movie finishing last holiday. And she was like, you know what? You're so dope. There's not too many black girls who do what you do. Hey, I wanted to be an actor, but I became a rapper first. So I thought about that. So when I got back
Wow.
home, I was like, you know what? I am going to take this seriously because I wasn't taking it seriously. I was waiting on her call. She said, "Hey, you're going to be in every movie." So I was like, "Okay, I don't need to do nothing else. Let me call her." And she called me for all of my four movies. So when I got back, I looked around. I said, "There was a niche for this," and I felt like I was good at it. So I started taking driving courses, and I finally got my motorcycle license. I was driving motorcycles without a license because I didn't think you needed a motorcycle license. So, you know, I, from there, after that talk with her, it was very educational, very eye opening. I took it seriously after that. So this is where I am today because of her.
Now, you just said something that I didn't know, which explains why she's so good, which is, Queen Latifah, you said Queen Latifah said she wanted to act, but she became a rapper first. And I used to wonder, like,
Yeah,
wow, she was a rapper, but she's just such a great actress, but she already
she's
had
such a
that
great
in her.
actress. Yeah, I think Jill Scott's the same way. I think a lot of them are the same way, and Erica Badu's the same way. If she pursued acting, she's a phenomenal actress. You know, like it's amazing. I mean, you saw what she did inside her house rules. So,
Hmm.
I just think a lot of people, you do what you. I remember Whoopi Goldberg said one time, and I doubled her before, and I was like, "Oh, Whoopi, you're so good at what you do. You were so good at comedy." She was like, "Well, you got to do what you got to do to get to where you got to go." And that made
Right.
a whole lot of sense. So
Yeah.
that's why I took it seriously. And with stunts, I learned a lot about acting because you get to watch the actors on set before you do your stunt. So I felt like that was my acting class. Doing stunts was my acting class.
Wow. Now, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm sure that people want to know, have you ever been hurt doing a stunt, or have you just been one of those very fortunate people?
Well, I think I've been that's twofold. I've been one of those fortunate people where I've never got hurt on the set, put it that
Okay.
way. So I've got seriously injured on a motorcycle training offset where, I was riding with different people, you ride different bikes. So I crashed a bike that wasn't mine because, every bike is different. So, yeah, I broke a few bones, had a few surgeries,
Oh,
and all
oh,
of it wasn't on the set. I have to say, for the most part, when you're doing stunts on film and television, they keep it safe with the stunt coordinators, but it's the training that gets you. So you have to be careful when you're training. That's the key. So sometimes when you're training, you're having fun with it, like sliding cars, flipping bikes. Accidents happen. So it was one of those things. Yeah, I had an accident on a motorcycle back in 2017, I think 26, and I never told anyone. Had 3 surgeries, and I kept working.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What has been one of your more memorable stunts to do? Like, have you had to jump out of a 20-story building? Have you since we're talking about motorcycles, have you ridden a motorcycle through fire? What's been that exciting,
Oh yeah,
memorable
I
stunt?
have actually. I always wanted, I love motorcycles, and I always wanted to do something extra with a motorcycle. Rather, it's ride a motorcycle into water, or So I got an opportunity to ride a motorcycle naked on the series called The Crash. I was doubling Haley McGree Norman. Then I got a chance to ride a motorcycle on fire on Tropical Cocktails. So that was pretty exciting because it was like liberation, for me. But I think the most memorable, probably, that people still talk about because they just couldn't believe it, was when I did a car hit on this television series, Touch, with Kiefer Sutherland. I actually got hit from the car from behind, and it was a quite memorable stunt because it was one of those where you looking at me from the front, then from the back I get hit the windshield, fall off the car, and it happened so fast and so brutal that people, I mean, I look at it myself and I'm like, how did I survive that? So I think the car hit was probably the most memorable in my stunt career.
And
Yeah.
miraculously, you
You're
didn't
amazing.
get hurt. Listen, you didn't
On
get
that
hurt with
one, you know
that
what? I did get hurt immediately, but just like car accidents, it happened days later where you feel like, oh, this whiplash effect,
one.
and for a couple of years after that, I had to take yoga, which I love yoga, just because, it tweaked my body out of, it was not balanced anymore. So I had to take yoga to kind of get my body balance back because I think it shifted a couple of my spine and a couple of hip bones in there. But
Now,
that it comes with the territory.
yeah. So do you are, I guess when outside is open, do you find yourself getting a lot of massages or chiropractic adjustments?
I do. And a lot of times, stunt people, we have our physical therapy at home, because a lot of times we come home from a long day of work and we have all of our homeopathic and physical techniques here at home, whether it's massages or rubs or, machines or, herbs and things of that nature. We have it here at the house. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, a lot of us go to yoga, a lot of us go to the chiropractor, a lot of us go to some type of physical therapy. I mean, that's needed, and that's self-care. That's how I look at it.
Mhm. So you said something like massage at home. So I got to know, do you have one of those like massage chairs from like where do you? I've seen them in like the
I need
Sharper
to get
Edge.
I know, right? I need to get one of those. Some people have
Okay.
those, but they have those massage beds that motivated. What I have is I have the rollers and I have the little heating the pad that massages me, and then I have the one that goes around the neck and it
Okay.
massages my shoulders and my neck. So, yeah, I want to my goal is to get a massage chair perhaps.
Though
Because
they're
I
a little
think that'll be good,
pricey, but
especially with the
oh
heat.
my God.
They're
Yeah.
pricey, but I got to figure out where I'm going to put it in my house. But I feel like if I could be in my room every time I come home and I could just sit in the chair and then
Hmm.
roll over in the bed, that would be a dream come true.
Now, going back a minute to stunt people of color, you created this a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Now, about how many people are a part of the online directory?
We have about 200 on there. We have about 160 stunt performers and about 40 stunt coordinators on there.
Mm.
So
Okay.
yeah, I would say about 200 and growing. There's a lot of people who was on our old site, and it's probably more that they're steady redoing their their pages for the new site, because now they create their own page and they could make it personable, so they can send their own personal links to stunt coordinators, so to be easily accessible for the stunt coordinators to have all of their stuff on it, their IMD pages, their contact information, their resumes, their videos, their pictures, everything's on there on their own page. So yeah, it was a good investment to do that. So when people ask me, you could go in there and do a search. I need girls from 5'2" to 5'3". I could send them every individual's page. So
Okay.
it's great. Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, you mentioned stunt coordinators. For those people who may not be familiar with the lingo, these are the people who actually hire stunt professionals to do work, right?
Yeah, stunt
Or at least
coordinators are
find
the
them.
people who hire, who hire the stunt performers to do the job. And a lot of times, half of the time, some stunt coordinators are second unit director, which are people who actually shoot the action part of the
Okay.
stunts, like car chase scenes, fights, fight choreography, and things of that nature. So these are the people who work hand in hand with the director, to see, to try to fulfill his vision of how do you see this fight scene? Yeah, I see it brutal, I see it martial arty, or I see it street and urban and edgy. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Then the stunt
Yeah.
coordinator comes to picks the best fighters for that type and the best doubles, if that's what's needed, to create that scene. So it's kind of cool to be a stunt coordinator, which, they get to pursue their vision with the stunt performers to make the actions happen. So it's kind of cool. Yeah. I really look
Awesome.
up to them.
Now, you have a question from one of our very loyal viewers here. Edwin
Okay.
has a question for you on the screen.
Oh, I love stunts in TV and movies. As you get more chronologically blessed, does it get harder to do stunts? Yes, it does, Edwin. It does get harder to do stunts. I mean, I'm at my age, I'm in my 40s, where, and I've been doing this since I was 20 some years old, where, 20 years, where it gets harder to hit the ground hard. I did a show before the pandemic, and I hit the ground and I was like, I'm more achy than I used to be. Or, I come home and then my muscles are tighter. Like, what's going on? Oh, it's my age. But also, it's also from doing it from 20 years. So that's why it's important to keep the yoga up, to keep the heat. You got to keep your self care up to be able to stay in shape. However, this is the time where you have to reevaluate yourself too and say, what can I do besides hit the ground? Oh, I could drive. I'm a good driver. So let me get better at my driving so I could just be in the car. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
Right.
I've been pursuing a lot of, stunt roles that requires being behind the wheel of a car, which is great.
Okay.
So yeah,
Now,
but I mean that's still risky too because I crash cars, I crash high speeds and stuff like that. But it's fun for me right now. You could do stunts forever. I feel you just got to pick out the type of stunts that you could do physically.
hmm
So
Right. Now, you're also an actress in your own right.
yes,
A number of
yeah.
credits. What can we catch you on right now? I mean, and when I say right now, I don't even necessarily mean something that may be new. What's on Hulu? Not a lot of us are catching up on
Oh, you
shows
know what?
that
It's
we did not get a chance to see when they were first broadcast.
Yeah. Let's see. On Netflix, you can catch me in a couple of things. There's Insatiable season 2. I think it's
Okay.
episode 9. I play a prisoner called Tanya.
Okay.
Pretty much throughout the whole episode. If anybody's seen Insatiable, it's about beauty pageants. Well, she has a beauty pageant in a prison. So shenanigans
Okay.
go on. So you'll be able to catch that. So that's called Insatiable season 2. And also Netflix. If you this movie called Naked is still airing on Netflix, where I play Corey Hardrick's girlfriend. I'm a member of a biker gang, and it stars one of the brothers. Oh my God, Marlon Wayans is in it, so
Hmm.
he's the lead in it. Marlon Wayans Jr. So you can catch me on Naked on Netflix too. So I think
Okay.
those are pretty much the only two things that I can see that's out. Oh, also Let's Be Cops. Let's Be Cops is a film, 21st Century, where I played Jwaundace. So that's airing on FX. So those three things are airing right now. You guys can go catch it.
And of course, BET runs a lot of things like Barbershop 3. So
Oh
I
yeah,
know that you're in
Barbershop
that as
3. I forgot
well.
that. So I think Barbershop 3, you can catch that too. That was a fun role. So yeah, that was
You
fun
know,
too.
between me and you, I auditioned for that same
We were.
role.
That's where I met you, right? Did you?
No, no,
Oh
I
my
did audition for
God,
that role. No, we didn't meet at that. We met before that. Not
we
for
met
that.
way before that.
Way
Yeah, yeah,
before
yeah,
that.
yeah. Way
Yeah,
before that.
yeah. So of
Oh
course,
my
when
gosh,
you
I
when you
auditioned for a
audition for
couple of
something
roles.
and then you watch and you like, who got it? He's like, oh, that's my
You like, who
girl.
got it?
Okay, okay, that's
Oh,
my girl.
that's so. Oh, I'm sorry. That was fun.
All right, you have another question from Edwin.
Okay, the fight when the fight scene and bringing down the house is one of my favorite. How long did it take to get the scene right? Oh, when that was my first movie, we did 2 weeks, I think. Well, maybe about 5 to 7 days of rehearsal and also figuring out who was going to do what because that fight scene was very long. So I would say it took about 5 days to create the fight and rehearse it. And that includes the rehearsal with the other actors. Because even though they're physically not doing the job, they physically have to learn the fight to walk through so they could get their expressions when they're walking through their fight. Because Queen Latifah,
Oh,
physical and she was younger then. You got to remember that was almost 20 years ago. So she was capable of moving and making it funny. So they also have to learn the fight because they physically have to walk through it kind of, without the flipping and all the stuff we were doing to like show their action of the fight. So I would say in total, it took about 5 days to rehearse and learn the fight and another 3 days to shoot it. It was over 3 days of shooting it. And we shot it on the studio a lot. So that was a good question, Edwin. Thank you.
wow. So what's coming up for you? I asked about, what could we watch, that maybe we can, do some of that when we're catching up and binge watching. What's coming up for you next? You mentioned some writing.
Yes, I did some writing, so I don't know. I gotta shop that. So as far as Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad trailer was just released a couple of days ago. So I
Okay.
played a little stunt acting role in that. It's just so amazing. It was so many, but it's so many people in that movie that's just so amazing, and the trailer looks great. I just shot I shot a film. It seems like yesterday during this pandemic, but this movie called Half Brothers that also from the director of Leslie Cops, Luke Greenfield. He called me back to audition for a particular role in that movie. Had to audition a few times for that, booked it. So that should be coming out soon, I would hope. And it's so many other, stunt movies that are coming out. But I
Hmm.
think the big Suicide Squad.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's huge. So that's it so far.
Well, and during this
But
time, it's hard to know what's coming out when, especially when you're talking about
yeah,
movies, because
exactly.
people don't know if they want to put them in the theater, if they just want to stream from home, and it's just a different time.
Yeah, it's a different time. And I really miss Angela. I miss going to the movie theaters. I would go with my son and I to sit there and just watch people on the big screen. That's like exciting to me. And I miss being, I hope we could get to a point before the end of the year that at least with quarantine that will be able to go back to the movie theaters because that's what I
That would
miss the
be
most.
nice. It would definitely be
I
nice.
miss the
Definitely.
most.
So being at home and having a 10-year-old, I know that, there's homeschooling perhaps and
Yeah.
other things. Now, have your cooking skills increased? And what, if there any new
It
recipes have you
has.
learned during the
I have to
quarantine?
tell you, I made some fabulous lasagna. I can make regular. I'm pescatarian, so I eat seafood.
Okay.
But I made a really good seafood lasagna with like shrimps and scallops and crab. Then I made it
Oh,
with vegetarian lasagna with veggie meat, or regular lasagna. So I make two different types of lasagnas now very well, and spaghetti. So it seems like I've been doing really good with pastas. You know what I mean?
okay.
Also
Hmm.
vegetables. Of course, I make all these grand vegetables that I make my son eat every day. So I've been doing pretty good cooking, and I actually kind of like it. So there's a
Yeah.
group of about five of us, my neighbors, two neighbors who we're called the quarantine crew. That we take turn and make dinner for each other, and present it. And all of us are so excited that we get to cook, and all three of us are like in this quarantine bubble. So I don't know if you have a quarantine bubble, but I think that really, really helps because I'm able to like go next door and have a
Mhm.
glass of wine with my neighbor, or
Yeah.
we could all get together for Friday night happy hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just the five of us. So it's fun. You know. So
I
yeah,
am not in
cooking
a
is.
quarantine bubble, but maybe I need to find one. Give me
Yeah, you
some
gotta
bubble mix and blow it
find
up
one.
and put it
I'm
out.
telling you, that's the only thing that's keeping my sanity. You know what I mean? Because there's only so much I can do with my son. I mean, I love him very much, but he's also 10. So
Yeah, it's a different time. We're not going
yeah, it
out as
is.
much. There are the events that we
No,
would normally go to, on a weeknight, maybe just hanging out, going to
yeah,
see a screening. We don't have those,
we're
and
not
we
doing
haven't
none of
had
that.
them
And
forever.
it's and then it's the summertime, and this is when the time when you're supposed to be going out doing something like that, and you just can't go. Like you can't.
Right.
It's really sad. Yeah. But
So
next
what
summer
are
we
you,
gonna make up for all of that.
girl? Hopefully. Uh, what are you most looking forward to when it is truly safe to gather in numbers and to fellowship
Oh
outside
my
of the
gosh.
bubble?
I'm most Oh my gosh, being back on set, Angela. Come on now. Being back on set, being able
Yeah.
to walk in an audition, maybe being able to go and shoot a self tape with, at Ken's house or get taped or,
Hmm.
with cast and direct, so I look forward to, having lunch and dinner with my friends, having
Yeah.
happy hours out at 4 o'clock and being home by 8, and being asleep by 9. That's fun for me. Being able to go see my family and give them a hug, which is so hard to do. So,
Hmm.
because you want to be careful, especially with your older family members. You can't even go
Right.
visit them, so just being able to just go out when you want to, not because, it's a pandemic, you got to be safe,
Right.
and I think
Absolutely.
for the most part, Angela, I probably would still be able to wear a mask, but at least I know I could go out. I'm gonna be like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was ahead of his time. Michael Jackson was always wearing a mask. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he wasn't playing it, so he knew something we didn't know. So I'm gonna be like Michael Jackson.
Definitely. That is funny. So, do you have any advice for anyone who may be watching who may have some great athletic abilities, may be one of those daredevils who is thinking, maybe I
Yeah,
could
who
do
wanna?
this?
I do. I do. I tell people all the time, if they had social media when I was coming out, the social media is the best thing that could happen, which is probably best that they didn't have social media for all the shenanigans that was going on. But
Yeah,
anyway, but yeah, you're like,
you got my
it's probably
face.
best. But yeah, all right. But no, social media is a really good tool, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because you could put all of your athletic abilities, say you're a fighter or you're a driver, and you could start putting 30-second videos out and start tagging, start going through there, searching. You could do tags of stunt performers, stunt coordinators, and, even stunt park. Start tagging. Go through stunt park and see if you see all these stunt performers who may have the same skills as you or coordinators. Start following them and tag them in your posts. That's very important. Most of the time, stunt performers come from some type of athletic ability. Like I came from wrestling. Then there are people who were gymnasts. Then there are people who are martial artists. Then there are people who are race car drivers. Then there are people who are skydivers. To snowboarders. And on down. So what happens is how I got in. Of course, I got recruited, but then there are people who get in now from displaying their abilities online on social media. The same way that I admire Tyler Perry, how he looks for talent off of YouTube and social media, stunt performers, stunt coordinators do that too. They may see somebody who's an extreme good martial artist and say, this guy's dope. He's got some talent. Maybe I can bring him in on Black Panther. A couple of, Black Panther was looking for at that time a couple of, a few Black men who could fight. And they got a lot of them off of social media. So I would say do that. Also Google, especially if you're in New York, the major cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Google the stunt gyms, stunt performers gyms. There's
Yeah.
at least 4 in every city. Show up, sign up, and network with other stunt performers and start training with those stunt performers. Networking is the best tool you could do. I like acting, how we kind of have to audition and put on tape and get an agent. With stunts, you hang out and you network with these people. Word gets around like, hey, there's this new guy who does this. Let me get him on the set. That
Hmm.
helps. The unfortunate thing though with stunts though, because of the risk we take, you have to be in the union. You have to be SAG-AFTRA.
Okay.
And I know Georgia is a right to work state, but every now and then they take a chance on someone who's not union and they would Taft Harley them if they have exceptional abilities. But you got to have that exceptional abilities. You can't just be, I want to do stunts. Can you put me in a movie? In that
Okay.
case, they can hire anybody who's in the union who's stunt performer that could do that. Why should we hire you? So you want
Hmm.
to stand out. You want to be exceptional.
And so
So
for
I would
any,
say,
go ahead.
yeah. So stunt gyms and then
Okay.
hustling your stunt skills on social media.
And so, for anyone who may be watching, not only is most of the Southeast are right to work states, your other big entertainment states like California and New York are union states. And so, there's a different
Mm-hmm.
process in terms of getting involved. Also, you don't have agents with stunts. Usually, every now and then you may have an actor stunt person and their agent might be able to help them get a gig. But generally speaking, most strictly stunt people don't have agents. And so you do have to network in order to get that work
Mm-hmm.
with stunt coordinators or other performers who may know of a specific niche that a movie may be looking for. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct? I just want to make sure
That's
I summarize
important.
that
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
No, no, no. That's correct. You're correct. You're correct on that. I mean, that's the thing with, the good, it's good and bads with being in the South with non-union states. I think it's really great for actors, but when it comes to stunts, there's some limitations because of the insurance purposes on that of being, wanting to be in the union.
All right. So, and as we begin to wrap up, do you have any final thoughts for people who, okay, maybe they've heard everything that you said. What is that training process in terms of keeping in optimal shape? I mean, you mentioned self care and making sure that once you leave set, that you are taking care of your body and that you are getting it back to
Mm-hmm.
where it needs to be after you've fallen or after you've taken a hit or a big
Yeah.
punch.
Yeah.
But what is that training process like? Because I know so many people who did Black Panther, and just before they ever started, they were training like 4 or 5 hours a
I
day
mean,
before they ever started
you
Black
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in LA. I was training like 3, 4 times a day. I mean, now I may train an hour a day, but I've shifted. But you had to get to that stage, though. You know what I mean? In your career. Um, so I would say train definitely, and also research the movies and the genres you would like to work for, the coordinators, research them, see who they work for. What are the coordinators the coordinators on Lovecraft? How is it different from the coordinators of Suicide Squad? How is it different? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's different coordinators who do different things, different types of skill sets. So make sure you research your coordinators. Don't just send it to a coordinator because you see his name. Make sure it's like, oh, this is the shows I want to be on, and the skills that are needed kind of match mine for this show. Maybe Lovecraft is good because it's a predominantly Black show and I'm a Black person. Maybe they'll need more of my skill set versus something, that's different, that's a period piece, and they don't have no Black people at all. You know what I mean? Like, why would
Right.
you kind of hustle that person? So that's why research is very important when it comes to stunts. Know what they're working on, know what kind of skills, that you have, if it matches the coordinator, if it's something that interests them. But most importantly, you need to do your research and train. Training is key because I meet a lot of people who say, "Oh, I want to do stunts." Okay, what's your background? Well, I played a little basketball here and there in the homie with my homies. Okay, basketball is not a stunt. Now, if you do basketball and you say you could flip and do some loops and hit it in there, you know what I mean? Like some tricksters, those could possibly be stunts. But just because you play basketball, it doesn't mean that you'll be a good stunt performer. That's the difference. Just because you were a gymnast, even, it doesn't mean that you could do a good stunt performer. Because I want to, okay, it's one thing you could flip, but can you flip and fall and crash through something? You know? So make sure you do your research and you train for stunts based on your athletic ability. Put it that way.
Okay, so I was a cheerleader, so it's nothing for me. Maybe no. Yeah.
No, no, no. Cheerleading is great, but are you really to be a cheerleader? I mean, are you really to be a cheerleader and crash through, off of 30 feet and flip off of 30
Right.
feet and something into the water? What's the difference? Are you really to be set on fire and do that? I mean, there was a time when I was starting off that, I used to be afraid, like, oh my God, what if I get a call to like do something, am I going to say, oh yeah, I could fight, but oh, I got to fight on water and with fire? You just have to be ready. If they say, hey, I need you to fight, but we're going to set your arm on fire, whatever, you got to be up for that. It's no picking the like, oh no, I'm a fighter, but I can only fight if it's a padded floor. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You got to
Right.
be able to crack through some too. You know what I mean? So really, you can't be. I mean, you have to develop. You have to get to your part of your career where you could be able to say, "Oh, I'm not, going 30, no more than 30 feet on a hot ball anymore." You know what
Hmm.
I mean? But you have to
Yeah.
get to that point. You say you do a hot ball, you got to do a hot ball. You can't be like, "Oh, I don't do no more than whatever." So
Hmm.
make sure whatever stunt skill you say is something that you fully capable of doing with anything. You know,
Hmm.
you can be athletic, but you have to be athletic and it's taken to another level into daredevil, you
Gotcha.
know. So like you said, you're a cheerleader, but can you be a daredevil cheerleader?
No, I cannot. I'm gonna leave that to you. Leaving that to you, most definitely. Well, thank you, Auntie, for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. All right. Well, JC's Instagram, as well as her Facebook and her Twitter, they are at the bottom of the page. And that is
And
one
it's my
way
name.
that you can connect with her, as well as on her Stunt People of Color website. Now, that is if you are, that's where you're supposed to be. And what is that website?
It's stuntpoc.com, stuntpoc.com. It has an FAQ page, frequently asked questions page, to see if you're eligible to even be on the page.
Oh, okay. So yeah, don't try to go slide up in there like Dikembe. No,
Thank
no,
you,
no,
Sherry.
not in my house.
Yeah, like you just because you play basketball, you can't be on the page. There's eligibility requirements. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So make sure you read the FAQ page
okay,
on there too. Okay.
awesome.
And we got videos, we got webinars where you can replay and learn from the stunt coordinators and stunt performers. We have 3 webinars that you can replay.
Oh, awesome. Great resource. Great resource. Well, JC, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with
Thank you
us.
so much for
Uh,
having me.
part 2 of Leading My Best Life. You are definitely a leader in the stunt world, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
honored that
Thank
you
you so
shared
much.
part of your journey with us tonight.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much. And I got to get your
All
book, girl. So make sure you send me the link.
right. I certainly will. I will. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye,
All right.
guys. Bye.
Bye. All right, that's it for this Monday edition of the Angela Ray Show. As always, I would like to remind you of Ray's motivation before. Cleaning a mirror does not change the person who is reflected in it. Until next time, I encourage you all to go out and be the change. Have a great